Hello, this is Gwydion, and this is round 2 of my attempt to do a character creation video on the Darkest House. And what I'm really trying to do is show you create like a 5e character and then convert it into the Darkest House. And I'm using the Alchemy system. I just finished a 40-minute video going through this, and the audio was jacked up. So I'm trying this again. So we'll see how it goes. So first off, I'm in my Darkest House module right now, but what I wanted to start by showing you is something I created for my players. But before I do that, I will tell you, as I go through the character creation and show you how to convert characters at the end of the video, if you want to stay that long, I am going to show a couple of things that I thought were kind of neat tricks in Alchemy that relate to sound and sound files so that your players don't hear them, and then also kind of maybe a creative way to use tokens. So stay tuned for that if you'd like. All right, let's jump in. I'm going to go to a second instance of Alchemy. So this is where I'm logged in as a player, and I created a custom universe for the Darkest House. Now I own the official content, but I wanted to be able to share only certain modules with the players. So this was my workaround, since you can't today share a specific module from a purchased universe to players. So what I'm doing is I'm basically linking to a specific article in the Darkest House official universe, and that allows me to share what I want with my players. So I'm going to jump into this article I created on character player resources, and let's start with the house reference sheet. Can't talk this morning. So I wanted to share with you a bit about how the system works for the Darkest House. And this is a PDF from the Kickstarter, but I think it's available for free, so I might link to it. So for most rolls, you're going to be rolling a 2d6, and then you're going to add them together with what's called your rating. So to step back, every roll is done by the player. Okay, the GM doesn't do any of the rolling, so that's really important. And again, everything you have that your character has or can do will have a rating, but you can make that very general, or you can make it super specific. And I'll get into that whole rating creation as we talk about some of the characters. But just starting from the top, if you're taking some kind of action or making an attack, roll 2d6, add them together with your rating, and then tell the GM your result. And basically, the target you need is to equal or exceed the action's rating. So it'd be your opponent's rating if you're attacking, plus 7. So if your opponent's rating is a 3 and you're attacking them, then you'd have to get a 10. So 2d6 plus your rating. Pretty simple. Then you will always roll the house die. And I'll show that to you, but the house die is a single d6. And if that die is higher than both of your other 2 die, or I guess said another way, if it's the highest of the 3 dice, the 2d6 and the house dice, if it's the highest one, then the house acts. So if you have a 3 and a 5 on your 2d6 and your house die is a 5, nothing happens. But if the house die is a 6, the house acts. Another concept is boons and banes, and if you've played Shadow of the Demon Lord, it's a little bit like that. Basically, if you have a boon, you have an advantage, but you roll 3d6. You get to roll 1 more d6, and then you drop the lowest results, or you take the highest 2. A bane is the opposite. You roll 3d6 and take the lowest 2 as your roll. Now, they don't really stack, but what does happen, like if you have, for whatever reason, 3 boons and 1 bane, then that just means that you get a boon. So you can never have more than 1, but they do stack for purposes of determining if you have a boon or a bane, or if you have, say, 2 boons and 2 banes, they completely cancel each other out and you don't have a boon or bane. So if you roll unsuccessfully on, say, an attack, you miss. If you are successful, then you need to see how much damage you inflict, if any. And to do that, you roll a d6, 1d6, add your rating, and then subtract the rating of your opponent. And the result is the rating of the wounds you inflict. So, and again, you might have, for your rating, the GM might say use your physical damage rating or your attack rating, whatever, and that's what you would add to the D6. So if you do that math and it's positive, let's say it's a 2, then that inflicts a rating 2 wound. If it is not positive, if it's 0 or negative, then basically you might have hit, but you just didn't do any damage. So they do not have a wound. Maybe they were protected on the armor or whatever. And in this case, you do not roll the house die. Now, one thing I'll digress for a second that's not on the house system reference sheet. If you look at the detailed rules for the Darkest House, they do have optional rules for like partial successes. Like if you roll doubles or something, you don't have to do that, but it's just it's an optional rule for the house system. So damage can have a boon or a bane, and we'll get to that when you look at my character creation. So avoiding an attack. So if you're being attacked, then again, you roll 2d6, add them together with your rating, and tell the GM the result. And again, you're trying to equal or exceed the attacker's rating plus 7. You also still roll the house die. And again, this is because you roll every time. The GM does not roll. So if you look at the top right now, I'm in the second column of this system reference document. It's an important call out up here that anytime you roll the house die, you can choose to add it to your normal result to improve your chances. Now, I've seen people in many playthroughs treat this differently. Some will say, hey, do you want to use the house die without telling the player the result? And in some cases, they'll just say, you missed. And, maybe they'll tell them that, hey, you missed by 2. The house die is a 3. So if you add it, you're going to succeed. I guess I would say do it as you want. I haven't really heard a definitive ruling on that. But if you do invoke the house die, you gain a doom. I won't go into that in detail. You can look at the rules, but it's significant and the house acts immediately, regardless of whether you succeeded. So it does carry a significant consequence, and we'll track those. So I already talked about boon or bane, where you hit. We talked about that. Resting, I won't get into this a lot. You can read this. This is more like, hey, if you do rest, you can potentially use that to kind of patch yourself up and treat your wounds. That's all I'll go into there. Let's get into a bit. I'm going to go into the house detailed, and I'm just going to flip through a few things here about the house. So let's go into converting player characters, and I'm going to scroll down. There's a lot of detail in here. Let me just scroll down to what I think is most important. So there's a chart in here under converting player characters for house system, and then different types of rule systems. So I'm going to show you how to create and convert a 5e character. You can do this for pretty much any system. So what this chart is showing you is under the house system column, this would be what the general rating of a player you're converting would convert into in the house system. And it's showing across the top here, 1 through 20, 1 through 4, 1 through 6. These are just different types of game systems. So in 5e, generally a 1 through 20 level system, you look at that column and say, hey, if I'm a level 3 character in D&D 5e, that would typically convert into a rating of 2 in the house system. And that would be like your general rating. What Monte Cook says and what they say about the conversion is typically you want to round down. So if you have a question, you're not quite sure, you would round down on the house system as far as what you're converting to. So that's how you're going to come up with your general system. And then again, if you're in like a D100 system and you've got like a 63, then that would convert into a house system level 7 character. And that rating is important because you're going to use that general rating for most of your rolls unless you convert some specific type of action or attack or defense in your character to a higher or lower level than kind of your base character level. So that's going to be your base character level. And then you're going to convert other things, not everything in your character sheet. The important thing from my perspective is this is all about a story that you're telling in the Darkest House. So, I mean, your actions are important, the attacks are important, but it's really not all about the mechanics and the attacks and the defense. It's more about the story and the things that will happen to your character and events. So I wouldn't worry too much about converting everything of the player. I would focus on what are the key things that make that player that character. So don't worry about, at least in my view. Now you can create and convert as much as you want. But I'll show you a couple of quick examples in the house system, and then I'll show you how I interpreted and did my own character creation. So scrolling down a bit more, there's a couple of rules of thumb here with these red bullet points. So if the character is kind of a real world human or close to that, then their maximum rating is going to be a 4, right? They're not going to get much higher than that. And if they're a superhero or the equivalent of a true hero, then their minimum rating is probably a 5. And if they're a fantasy character like 5e or something, then it could be anywhere from, say, 1 to 10. I assume like a Call of Cthulhu character or maybe a Vaesen character, probably going to be on the lower end, because certainly for Vaesen, they don't have like real super powers. So they might be like 2 or 3 kind of thing. And it does say no matter what system you're using, if you're not sure between 2 different conversion results, use a lower one. When in doubt, round down. He does talk about the fact that you should use small modifications. So again, that single rating might not encompass everything, but they might be really good at stealth. And I'll show you that because I'm going to show you one of my rogues I created. But you might say, hey, for stealthy or sneaking quietly or something related to those types of activities, you're going to rate them a 4. And then basically what they say is feel free to make as many exceptions as the character needs, but you'll really want to give them adjusted rating that's much more than 1 away from their. So that's probably the key call out there. Character stuff, sword's a sword. I don't do as much with armor as the system does talk about, hey, you can do a +1 for light armor, +2 for other armors. I didn't do as much of that. Maybe I should have, but I tried to make it kind of super simple. And then unless somebody's wearing like plate mail, I'm not making a huge distinction there. Magic items and spells, I'll get into that in the character creations. I made it pretty simple in my game. So let's scroll down to a couple of examples. And I'm going to get into, sorry, I'm scrolling quickly. I'm going to get into the 5e examples. So let's go to what he shows as his first one, which is Arduk, a dwarf fighter from 5e, 5th level. So in his case, what he did is he said, look, Constitution score is high, he's tough. So he's going to give him a rating 4 for resisting wounds, but he's got a low dex and low charisma. So 2 rating. So again, his base is a 3. I should have said that. Base is a 3. So he kind of went up a level for resisting wound, down a level for like things that are dexterity based. And he also added some more things like plate mail and some others. So I mean, he really bumped up his resisting wounds for physical wounds, which is rating 6. You can get mental and physical, so that's why there's a distinction. Actually, I should have said resisting physical wounds, in my opinion, because mental wounds won't be affected by armor. If you scroll down to this like general character sheet here, overall rating of 3, modified ratings, he said resisting wounds 6 because of the armor and other toughness, dexterity 2, charm 2, perception 4, athletics 4, attacks and defense 4. That was kind of his generic way of saying, hey, he's strong. He's got a magical warhammer, which I didn't point out, but he does. So he bumped everything up a bit. And then as far as ongoing effects, the one thing they say in the conversion, if there's something that is like a magical item or something, some kind of feature that gives you a constant, it's easier to handle that with a boon or a bane. So in this case, he's got a shield, so he's got a defense boon, and he's got a magical warhammer, so he gave him an attack boon. So that's it. That's your character, Arduk. That's how the conversion, the mechanical would be. Now, if you get into another, like a 5th level sorcerer, in this case, what he did a couple of rating changes, and then he talked about how he converted the spells. So you can look at this. I handled it somewhat similarly, but not the exact same. In some of the spells that I created, like here, they say Fireball. This is an attack using their rating 3. They can affect a bunch of targets in an area. The potent spell attack, so he gave them an attack and damage boon. That makes sense, but again, you can do whatever you want. Because my wizard had a wand of the War Mage, you'll see how I did that, but that I gave him basically a boon on all attack rolls. So, but you look at, again, this Sorcerer character sheet, overall rating of 3, couple of modified ratings that were a little bit higher, resisting damage lower, evading physical attacks lower, And then Boons, Banes, he does have a shield, and he does have the fireball spell, which he noted. Then he also gave him the spells down here. So let's jump in. I'm going to click out of this. I think we're done with this for a minute. And I'm going to jump into the actual house system, and I'm going to show you around the character, and then I'll show you how I use D&D Beyond to create the 5e characters and then convert them into the Darkest. So let's first, I'm going to start going over to my NPC, and I've added these just so it's easier for me to play them and show you. We're going to start with the rogue, Merrick Thorn Gage, and I'm going to hit play. So you'll see when this first pops up, and I'm actually going to quickly unselect that. There we go. So a couple things when you first open the character, you'll see some general actions over here. I've created a player role, house die, roll with a boon and a bane, because those are the 4 key roles that you're going to need, period. That's all you really need. And then under equipment, I gave him, he had a magic item, short bow of warning, and a short sword. So I added those 2 pieces of equipment. Trackers, I added wounds, and you can get several wounds, but I wanted to just have those pre-selected for the players so that if they do get a wound, they can quickly say, hey, I have a level 2 wound. Let me select 2 of these. And then if I want to add a wound, I can just add tracker and just kind of create physical wound 2. Keep going. Thought that was an easy way to do it. You look at the main character over here to the left, I created like a primary tracker as the doom tracker. So if he does get dooms, you can click into here, say, hey, I now have a doom. I actually updated the colors, so this one's red. And then wound count, if they get a couple of wounds, say a couple physical wounds, you can add that. And then at least it can kind of in a general sense track how many wounds do you have and how many do. That's an easy way to do it. You click into the character, then you can see the trackers that I've created, but it's pretty simple attributes. I just did 1 overall rating. That's the only attribute I created. That way the players know in general they're going to have a 3. But for skills, and I could have probably done a few more, but I did defense of 4 and any other dexterity related, like stealth, nimble hands, something like that. I just said, we're going to give him a 4 there. The defense 4 for being quick and being a rogue, and then dexterity related 4. So now I'm going to get into the roles, and I'll come back to the features because I want to show you the conversion I did. But let's get into the actual guts of how I built this. So name, simple. Concept will show up right underneath the name. So I just said level 5 halfling rogue, 1x1 token. Here's where I added an attribute and called it overall rating 3. And this is where you would add whatever skills you want to create and make them whatever you want, right? Features, I did a few, but let's get into those after I talk about them for the conversion. All right, get into actions. I created these 4 that will show up. Player role I did as a dice pool. So if you click on this, I did 2d6, straight up 2d6, pretty simple. All these icons that you see I got from gameicons.net. If I remember, I'll post a link and show you so that you can get those because they're all free. It's a great website. Let's go back to, so house die is house die, really simple. Roll with boon and bane are similar, but if you look at this, I did it as a command type roll. 3d6, keep highest 2, H2. So for a boon, I did 3d6, KL2, keep lowest 2. And that way it'll all show up in chat. You can see what happened. It's really pretty slick. So under equipment, I did a short bow of warning and short sword. Let's go to the short bow of warning. And again, icon from the website. So I'm editing this by toggling in the top left. If I go under actions, I created 3 actions: short bow attack, short bow damage, and short bow sneak attack roll. So if you click on, the reason I did the full name rather than just attack roll, damage roll, is that's how it'll show up in chat. So it'll help me as a GM know what the player did. If I click on the short bow attack roll, I did this as a dice roll, so 2d6. And then I'm adding, because this is 5e, I'm adding the dexterity related skill of 4. So it'll be 2d6 plus 4 when he rolls. The way I handled the sneak attack, and I'll show you, but in my mind, I didn't want to nerf sneak attack, and you don't attack a ton in the Darkest House. So I just, instead of doing it on damage, I'm basically giving him advantage. So or a boon, 3d6, keep highest 2, plus 4, which is his dexterity-based skills. So he'll get to roll 3d6, keep the highest 2, and then add 4 to that for his sneak attack roll. That was a easy way to do it. And then for damage, I think I just did 2d6, or 1d6, sorry. Yeah, 1d6 plus his dexterity rating. All right, let's get out of this for a moment and go into the character sheet. So here's Merrick. So this is, again, right out of D&D Beyond. You can convert that into Alchemy as a 5e character. And then I'm now using this to determine what things do I really want to bring over for Merrick into the Darkest House. Advantage against being frightened, that's probably something I want to include. It seems relevant to Merrick. Some of the others, like Cunning Action, I may let the player do something unique if they ask me about it, but I don't think I'll convert that over. Fast Hands, the same. I figured I did bump up the rating from 3 to 4. Kind of feel like that captures that. Sneak Attack feels like that's really critical to a 5e character and to a rogue, so I want to convert that. So again, I know it relates to damage. The way I did it is I did it a bit differently, and I'll show you on the character sheet. Uncanny Dodge, I feel like that's an important one too. So I did convert that over as well. And then you've got his Short Bow of Warning. Short Bow of Warning, basically you get advantage on initiative rolls in 5e, and you can't be surprised. I think those are the key things to me. There's some other things that, like maybe Halfling Luck, I should have done something with, but I just don't want to get too crazy because it's, again, about the story, and I don't want to get too bogged down in character creation. So let's go back to the app, and let's open up Merrick. So as I scroll down, you can see Uncanny Dodge. The way I handled that is I said reduce your wound rating by 1. So if you do get hit and say you get a level 3 wound rating, it's now going to be a level 2. I thought that was kind of a nice way to give him a little less damage, still takes the wound, but it does give a benefit anytime he's injured by a physical attack. I probably should have said physical. Sneak Attack, this is where I handled it a bit different. I said, let's give him a boon on attack rolls for the first round of combat. So it just makes it nice and easy to adjudicate, but it'll give it to them like every time they have attacks. So every time they come up against a monster or something in the house they're attacking, he'll get a boon on that attack roll in the first round. Short Bow of Warning, the way I handled this is I just said, look, I think there's some times in the Darkest House where it says that the monster acts first. I just said, look, you're going to get to act first in every round of combat. Just nice and easy way to hopefully carry that over for the player. And the party can't be surprised. That might be, I don't know if that's going to be too strong. I haven't really thought about it. But again, I thought that was a nice way to easily handle that. And then advantage against being frightened. I just said boon on rolls to defend against mental attacks, because you'll have physical attacks and mental. So in my mind, most of the things in the Darkest House that are mental are scary. So I just said, hey, let's give him a mental attack boon on those types of rolls. So that's really Merrick. So then if you come back over here and you're playing the character and you just do a straight up roll, click on player roll and use. Hopefully, did that roll? Uh-oh. Or if I just clicked it wrong. Oh, I'm in chat. That's why. There we go. So it rolled a 4 and a 5. So that's a 9. So house die, again, it's just going to pop up as house die. But at least you can distinguish between the two of them. I think I have GM rolls as hidden, why these are yellow. So let's roll with a boon. So if you roll with a boon, then it's nice. They just implemented this new functionality, but you see all 3 D6s, but it shows that this one's grayed out, so you're keeping a 7. So now under equipment, if I want to equip the Short Bow of Warning, I can tick on it here, go back, and you can see that's now shown up here. If you really want to clean these up a bit, you can just drag and drop these. If you're always going to have that short bow, you can drag these up and just say, hey, I want my short bow actions to always be on top. And then my general rolls, if I ever need them, down below here for like general checks. But now if you roll the sneak attack roll, And if you look at chat, I like that because as a GM, I can say, oh, that was a short bow sneak attack roll. That's right. The first round of combat, they should have rolled that. Now you can see this shows an 11. You're like, wait a second, that's a 7. If you click on this, I think I'm going to tell or report this as maybe a bug, but you can see they dropped the 1. So it's the 6 plus the 1. But if you remember, I set up this roll to add the modifier of the player, which is 4 for dexterity-based rolls. So it's adding that 4, which is appropriate, but it's not showing it. So anyway, and then if you just roll the standard short bow attack, that's going to show up as just a straight 2d6. So you got a 5 plus the 4 again, which is your 9. So pretty nice and easy. And then again, you can deselect that and you're back. And then trackers, there are your wounds. So nice and easy if you want to kind of increase your wound count or decrease your wound count. All right, let's get into Valanth, who is our wizard. Play him. So most things for Valanth are set up the same. Actions, the 4 generic actions, equipment. This is where I did this a little bit differently. I set up the spells as equipment, and you can see on the far left, it looks like, hey, you've got your spell level. That's great. I cheated on how I did that, but I'll show that to you. And then trackers, I set up the wounds just like I did before. And then for arcane recovery and spell slots, I set these up as trackers that were already filled in because in my mind, it's just easier for me to look at that and say, oh, I've got 4 spells left. If I tick on one of these, now I've got 3. It was just easier for me to identify what I have left. So like I have 2 spells to use. You can change that if you don't like that. If you'd rather have them unchecked, like the physical wounds, you can. But I just wanted to have them pre-selected. So let us get into Valanth for a second. And the trackers are a little more pressed because actually I added quite a few for like arcane recovery and spell slots. But attributes, again, overall rating 3. I did a little more for him. I said like investigation and intelligence related 4. Added in Arcana 4, and then Charm Charisma was pretty low, so I just kind of had interactions and those types of things as a 2. Features, Wand of the War Mage, I just said boon on all spell attack rolls. Nice and easy. Arcane Recovery, I just copied that text over, but I gave him that so he could add a spell slot. Dark Vision. And I did, so if you look at the character sheet for Valanth, so if you look here, he has immunity to magical sleep and advantage against being charmed. I didn't set it up immunity. I hope the player doesn't view this as like me nerfing it. But to me, in the Darkest House, you might like fall unconscious. There might be things that shock you that are mentally like knock you unconscious. So I just put that as a boon instead of just you're immune, you can't be put to sleep. And then you have all the spells and things. But those are the main things that I wanted to handle. Arcane Recovery and maybe Sculpt Spell, right? To me, those are the key things for Valanth to get out of this. So I did say boon on all rolls to resist magical sleep. I just realized I might not have put in, I'd probably give him a boon on being charmed, which I haven't done yet, but I can do that easy enough. And then Sculpt Spells, I just said, because this won't come up often, I just said you can exclude party members from effects of your spells, period. I don't think that'll be too strong because he won't have, it's not all about combat. In fact, combat's not as big a thing in the Darkest House. It's important, but it's not the critical thing. So here are the attributes again, the skills that I added, and you can add whatever you want or subtract. Features are easy to add, but Wand of the War Mage, and then again, I just put the brief descriptions in here. So those are all very easy trackers. So if you look at the trackers, again, I did Doom and Wounds, just a wound count. Tracker panel, I added physical wound 1 and category wounds. I don't know if the category matter so much yet. So I set the current value to 0 so that they can tick off, is it a level 1 wound? Yeah, I don't think you'll get too much higher than 6. So I did pips instead of a bar, but you could change this to a bar. And then again, mental wounds, because you want to track those separately. Arcane Recovery, I did set this as pip, and I put the current value maximum the same as spells. And that's how I got them to be toggled on. Actions, we already walked through how I set these up. Let's go to equipment. This is where I cheated a little bit And you can see I have ways to equip these for like attacking spells. So let's look at Shocking Grasp. So again, you got the icon in here, you've got the description, so we'll unlock it. So I set this as a cantrip. So under item type, you can put like the spell level, which is what I did, and I put the name. Then quantity, I put as 0, and this is really going to be the spell level. So this is a cantrip, so I put it as a level 0. And here's what I did something a little different because this is a cantrip, and you can fire it off time and time and time again. I basically said the way I nerfed this a little bit is your damage is rolled with 1 Bane. So at least that way, yes, you can do Shocking Grasp, but kind of like if you attack and you miss and they don't get any damage, I tried to do this and say, hey, you're going to get a lower level of damage. So if they do get a level 1 wound, it's going to be 0. If they get a level 2 wound, they'll have a level 1 wound. So it was my way of nerfing it without completely nerfing a cantrip. And then under actions, I've got Shocking Grasp attack roll. And the way I did this is I did a command roll 3d6, keep highest 2, and then +4. I'm letting the character use their intelligence-related skill. Instead of being a level 3, I'm giving them that level 4, and I'm giving them a boon for the Wand of the War Mage. And then for damage, I think I just did a straight damage roll. No, I did give them a boon on a damage roll as well. And a Bane. That's right. We already talked about that. Keep lowest 1. So that was a Bane. That makes sense. So that's how I did spells. And some of these, go back in. I was going to show you Fireball. Pick this. And let's go into equipment. So Fireball is a level 3 spell. And each of these I handled a little bit different. This one I said you attack with a boon, damage with a boon, and you get +1 to the wound rating upon damage. So if you look at the actions here, look at the attack roll. Once it pops up, 3d6, keep highest 2 +4. That's that. And then if I go back to damage roll, this is where I do 2d6, keep highest 1, +4 for the wizard's level in Arcana or intelligence-related items, and then +1 for 1 more wound level. So that's how I did that. And so then if you go over to your actions or equipment and say, look, I'm going to cast Fireball, so let me equip Fireball. And then I go in here and now Fireball pops up. So now I do my attack roll, use. And you can see it rolling over here, and it's rolling with advantage. So it's rolling a 16, so 12 +4, the attack roll. But then the damage roll should be giving you a +5 because I'm giving 1 more wound category. So in this case, it rolled a 6, +4 for the wizard's level, +1. But again, I'll probably report this. I think it should show like dice modifier or something, +4, +1. And then again, you can go back to your equipment and say, I want to unselect Fireball. And then I've got my trackers. I already went through that. So that's it. That's character creation. That's character setup. And I will post links to these. I already did, but I'll post them in the YouTube video. I thought they'd be useful. So I said I'd get to a couple of things that I thought were kind of neat or possibly workarounds. Like right now, if you try to play a sound absent just sounds that are native to Alchemy. If I wanted to play a one-shot sound, I would have to drop it in chat or somehow do it as an action, and it would show up and the players would see it. So a bit of a workaround for me is if you go into chat, and if you own the Darkest House app, which I do, and I'm going to see if I can drag this over for you. So this is the Darkest House app. Minor spoilers, sorry. So I'm in the sitting room, and there are some links here for sound. I'm going to copy that link by just clicking on it. So it shows copied. Put that back to my other screen. And now if I drop it in chat and just hit, you can see the link to the live file on the Darkest House. Hit return. And it just starts playing. That's awesome. That's going to be my workaround. And so again, then once it's done, I can either pause it or stop it. Now, I think as a watcher, they might be able to interact with that. I don't know. I haven't tested that, but you can always click on delete it so the players or or the watchers can't just keep playing it over and over. And then you can go back to the journal and you can see it did not show up there. It's a little bit of a workaround. The only other thing, my other secret little tip trick I wanted to show you is I got inspiration from watching somebody play The Darkest House. I think they were using Foundry, but I'm going to go into the gallery and show you what I did. So if you go into the gallery, the way the normal, like if you own The Darkest House and you pull this up, you're going to see the curator. But because the curator only shows up if one of your players has one or both of the eyes of the child, I am not, I took that picture out and I'm just showing the general map of the gallery. Now, what I did that I thought was a little cool is if you click on tactical mode, and I'm going to turn off the grid, I created tokens. And what I did is I have these tokens when the players first come on here, these will all be hidden. And I'll go through my overview of the game or the setting and what they see and what have you. Maybe the curator there, maybe they're not. And then I'll tell them, hey, there are paintings along each of these individual sections of the house. And if they say, hey, I want to go to this painting up in the left corner, I can click on it and make it visible, hopefully. Yep. And then I can say show. And now it pops up. It shows up as a turnover because it thinks it's an encounter or something. But now they'll see that. And then if they click on it, they can click on view. And now they see the picture itself. And I didn't really add much to the description, but I'll show you what I did. If you click on description, you see the image again. It's pretty same as the heading image. But then you can click on full size image. If they really wanted to see like a big web page, then they can see it in all its glory. And it glows. And this is directly from links I have in the Darkest House app to those downloadable images. Now, how did I do that? If you edit the character, you can see I just named it Old Woman and a Dog, 1x1 token. And then I set up under description, I set up these, and these are in the markdown discussions on Alchemy. But you can see how I did that. I basically have a link to, and I called it full size image. They can click on that, and I just have the actual image itself. So now I can toggle this on and off because like right now, they wouldn't see it. But if I toggle this on, they would see that description, nothing really to hide. So I'll probably toggle that on for my players once they're in here and once I make the token visible. But you can see they don't see the rest of these. But if I go down here, then I can click show. And then again, whenever they get in, and I think the watchers might even be able to interact. And I thought that was a cool way to maybe get the watchers to be able to interact a little bit more and view those tokens as well. So that's it. I know that went on super long. I hope that is helpful. Drop me a link to the video. And if anybody has any questions about the Darkest House, how to play or anything at all, I love the game. I've only had a chance to run it a handful of times, but really, truly enjoy it. And I'd love to help you out if I can. Till next time, I hope to see all of you on some of the Alchemy forums. Take care.